Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the MenoLounge. I'm Julie Gordon-White, CEO of MenoWell, Menopause, Energy, and Protein Bars. How you doing? We are in the countdown in the holidays. Food everywhere. How you doing? Hanging in there, making your best choices, saving all the good stuff for when you really want it. Hey, Dr. Kelly, how are you? We're going to be talking about all things Ozempic today with the author of a brand new book. So hold on, let me see if I can grab her here. Dr. Alexandra. Let's see. These are always the fun things. All right, here we go. Here we go. Post in the comments what you're eating and not eating. I thank goodness. I'm locked and loaded now. Locked and loaded. Okay. Hey, Melissa. Hi, Jamie. Okay, Dr. Alexandra, I think we've got you. There you are. Hello.
Hi.
Well, welcome. So excited to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me. Sorry to be late. I was actually seeing patients right up until this was scheduled.
1 second ago. That's always the fun part of having an MD on the MenoLounge because you just have to be prepared. That's just how it is. So
yes,
all good. Well, I'm so excited. Your new book. Let's get right to it. The Ozempic Revolution, the very first guide on how to use GLP-1s like Ozempic, Wegovy, all the others that have now seem to have popped up, and an actual plan on how to use them so you can end yo-yo dieting, get your health back, all of the good things. And especially today, I want to talk about how that relates to women from perimenopause to post. It's such a big deal. I've actually learned about GLP-1s because I had someone come up and say because of MenoWell bars are high fiber, and she was struggling with, we're going there, constipation in the biggest way. And it was one of the ways that it helped her get through this. And I know you have some awesome products too. That high fiber is so important. So we're going to go right into it. But how on earth did you decide to become an obesity specialist? That's what I want to know.
So I was doing it before it was cool. I have been an obesity medicine specialist for over 10 years. It really stems back to the fact that when I entered medicine, I always knew I wanted to be in the preventive medicine space, but it wasn't very clearly defined. And I thought, okay, I'm going to learn about the whole body. I'll pursue internal medicine. I studied at NYU. And when I got into my residency, I was very disillusioned. The majority of our education was spent on managing and learning how to treat end of disease and not prevention. And the only path in front of me for prevention was this emerging space of obesity medicine. And I was very, very fortunate to be exposed. I had some great mentors, and it only made sense. I'd be in the clinic and there'd be people with type 2 diabetes or hypertension or cardiovascular disease, cancers, joint pain, back pain, headaches. And our advice would be lose weight. And then people would be like, okay, but how? And we'd be like, I don't know. Let me give you some medicines to manage the disease in the meantime, and good luck. And we've known for a long time that the traditional mantra of eat less, move more just really doesn't work once your body has gotten to a place of metabolic dysfunction. It is wonderful for prevention, right? So I still want everyone to do all of these things. Right.
We're not setting that aside, but this is something more.
No.
Okay.
Exactly. And so the emerging field of obesity medicine, we had medications, we had tools. I learned how to help my patients eat differently for their specific metabolic type. I was always
we lost your audio. Yeah.
Sorry. And I was always very big into the holistic arm of what I did. We had medications. We had our first generation anti-obesity medications. They weren't as effective as what we see today. And now with the efficaciousness of these meds, how effective they are, they're getting a lot of attention, rightfully so. And so that kind of the field has exploded. I love what I do because my patients are so happy that they are being given like a new lease on life. I mean, I saw 20 patients today, and every one of them was thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going into the holiday season not feeling like I've failed and I've got to reset January 1st. I'm here. I've arrived. I know what I'm doing. I have the tools to do it. And these medications are a big part of it. So
I love it. Well, I want to talk about something, and I feel like it's taboo-ish, but not really. And it speaks to this whole thing about, if I know you've had a baby not so long ago. Awesome, congratulations. And there's a thing about, oh, I want to deliver naturally, or I'm going to go straight for an epidural,
right.
you know, and that sort of like, oh, well, I just want an epidural, like sign me up, you know, that was for me. But then other women, different story, all good, no judgment zone. I sort of feel like Ozempic, these GLP-1s are falling into that category of, if you take a drug to help you with your weight loss, that's sort of like not doing it the hard way. And then there's the hard way. And I find I'm kind of person who does things the hard way. That's just how I roll, you know?
Yeah.
But so talk to us about, is it a stigma, or what's, you know, the stories we tell ourselves? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think it's all of the above. I think the first thing to be aware of is that we all carry a lot of weight bias and stigma, and we carry it within ourselves, our society, and in the doctor's office. And this is actually where I see a lot of parallels to the management of women in menopause, to the disease of obesity, to it's a state that we have to go through and we live our lives. But just because some other people could do it one way doesn't mean we all have to do it that way, right? We could white knuckle it or make it hard. We don't all have. Now there are new tools to us to kind of make it easier. I think that we've been so conditioned to think that if we have a weight problem that we've done something wrong, and that it is an element of willpower, and there's so much shame that's been baked into many of us, specifically women, from a very, very, very young age. Like we're talking age 5. And we think that we should have been able to figure it out. We've thought about it so long. We've tried for so long. It's like, why can't we do this? We are successful women. We are doctors. We are lawyers. We are mothers. We are part of the community.
We can do all the other things.
Why can't we figure this out, right? Right. And so I think what works for one person does not need to be the thing that works for another. And I am by no means saying that, hey, these medications should be in our drinking water, right? Like that's not, I'm not just saying everyone get a drug, right? It is if you've come to a place where you feel like I am doing the things, or you know what, maybe I'm not doing all the things, but I really can't bring myself to do the things. And my world has become smaller and smaller because I can't manage my weight. That's where these tools become so helpful. And I always tell my patients, I mean, I say this like every day, it's not my way or the highway. I will tell you in my experience what I think might be beneficial here, but you need to also feel comfortable and come to this. And that's actually the reason I wrote the book, The Ozempic Revolution. I really feel like so often in modern medicine, we dismiss the value of the conversation and of the education, right? And we're just like, just listen to
perimenopause, menopause, like that is the conversation of being dismissed. So yes.
Right. And it's just like the more that you can bring and feel comfortable and knowledgeable about it, the more involved you can be in your care. And so that is the approach that I took in writing this book, is that we start off first with the science of it, right? Like how do these meds work? Are they right for you? I want you to understand the whole physiology behind the biology of weight gain, right? Like what is going on? This isn't just a matter of willpower. I'm going to explain to you leptin resistance and insulin resistance and understanding that for many people, this goes far beyond the things you have or have not done in your life. And there is much more to it, right? There's neurohormonal dysregulation. There's epigenetic modification. It's that maybe your body just wasn't built to thrive in a world where we're full of ultra processed foods and we've got toxins in the air and microplastics, and maybe we need to think differently about how we approach the next version of your health. So again, not for everybody, but if you're curious or if you're thinking about it, or you know, if someone put a little bug in your ear and you're like, oh, does that mean I'm taking the easy way out? Then we need to really have a deeper conversation.
Right.
Figure out
No, you're hitting on all the pieces here. Okay, so let's go back to the basics for a second. Remind everybody, or tell us if you don't know, how do GLP-1s actually work?
Right. Okay. So there are two big groups right now of medications. We have GLP-1 agonist medications, so they act like a hormone in our body, the GLP-1s. And then we have this other class of drugs, GLP-1 plus GIP. So Ozempic and Wegovy are just one hormone. Mounjaro and Zepbound are two hormones. And we're actually going to see more and more of these multi-hormone drugs come to market in the next few years, or like different ratios that are tailored just to you, and we'll see different benefits and weight loss percentages and side effect profiles. But at the core, these drugs mimic a drug that a hormone rather, that naturally occurs in the body. What makes them so powerful and so different than, say, a GLP-1 mimicking supplement you might see on the market is that our native GLP-1 hormone disappears in a matter of seconds. When we have a metabolically healthy body that's kind of in stability, that does the trick. The hormone will signal the brain and just tell the stomach we're full, you can stop eating, and it works.
And that hormone is
the GLP-1 or the GIP, all of these hormones that these drugs mimic.
Same ones. Okay.
The problem is, as we gain weight, as we kind of harm our brain and our brain stops signaling hunger cues, or we just carry strong genetics, that native level of the hormone doesn't work so well. So enter these class of drugs that mimic the naturally occurring hormone.
So we have our own GLP-1s. I think that's the part that I was disconnecting to. So we make our own GLP-1 or multiple hormone version of this, but when we have some metabolic disconnect, then all of a sudden we're not making them at the same level, correct?
Well, what happens is then we don't really respond to
we don't
it.
respond. Okay. It's there, but we're like, yeah, we're going to eat these Oreos anyway.
Exactly. Okay. And even if you naturally grow that hormone, once you need to lose weight, it doesn't really work. And there's an important point to this, because I'm seeing a rise of things that say, naturally, take this and boost your natural GLP-1. They're not that effective. Why the drugs are so effective is because they work on the order of the thousands of what the naturally occurring hormone is in your body.
Like most that's what pharmaceuticals do, right? They solve, it's like hormone replacement versus something that's natural. Natural can work, but it's going to take a long time, and which is fine too, but not like a pharmaceutical.
No, and the natural version really doesn't actually work all that well once we have the dysfunction and carry extra weight, and that's why the drug is so effective. So what it does is it mimics a hormone that is in our body, but is so much stronger. And it works in three big ways. I call them the superpowers. So we have three superpowers, and I talk about this in the book. It works on our brain, it works on our stomach and our gut, and it works on our pancreas. And it's so powerful because, unlike previous iterations of weight loss drugs, this is not just a stimulant that's telling your body,
like the ones that got us in big trouble in the past when we were teenagers taking that stuff.
Exactly. And it made you shake, heart rate up, appetite down. It was one level of how you could reduce appetite, but it wasn't very complex, or you reduce calories. It was just really about that, reducing calories. These drugs work on a much deeper level, and anyone who's had success on these drugs can tell you that this is not just about taking away your appetite. And in fact, many of my patients can actually eat more actually and thrive and lose weight, because it's the process of their, for lack of a better word, their metabolism that begins to be fixed. So how that works is the drug makes your body become very effective at taking in food and using it rather than storing it right away to fat. And that has to do with how quickly our body will release insulin. It will grab carbohydrates and it will process it, instead of allowing blood sugar to sit around for a long time in your blood and starting a process that really becomes hard to stop, which is creating fat. And it's so effective at talking to our brain to tell our brain, you're not hungry. You're not hungry anymore. I'm not going to have you think about food all the time. And so this concept of food noise that you hear a lot is like one of the biggest revelations of this drug.
Yeah, I heard you talking about food noise. I hadn't heard that term, but I think many of us have. I mean, food is just around us all the time, everywhere you look. And so it makes sense. It's always there. And the medication makes that go away.
Quiets it and just quiets it. And then you're able to really tap into what your actual true hunger cue needs are. And at the beginning, the hunger cues can go down so far that you're not eating. And we talk about that in the book. Like, instead of thinking about how little you should eat, we have to talk about how do you get enough food at the beginning, right?
Right.
And that normalizes over time. But it's just amazing. I mean, I have patients who tell me that I've given them hours of their day back because instead of obsessing about what to eat next and thinking about how can I be the healthiest and I shouldn't think about that food, but I'm hungry, and then I'm going to go to the kitchen and get a cup of tea instead. They just don't think about it. They just don't think about it. And it's a great gift because they can instead think about shifting to nutrition.
Yeah.
So
which is
those are the deep ways it works.
It's amazing. And I didn't understand before, it's not just the signal to the brain, that it also works with the gut. And we're going to talk about how gut health and slowing down our GI tract, how that can be a part of something that you have to manage when you're doing this. But let's just talk about the brain for a minute, because there's a lot of conversation now about menopause in the brain. And so in some ways it feels triggering for me to hear that here's a pharmaceutical that can help me manage weight, or women manage weight, but it's also it's talking to my brain. And I'm already, you know, I'm speaking for all menopausal women now, perimenopause, you know, we have brain fog. We're already struggling with keeping our brain doing what it needs to do because of estrogen decline. So how are all these things interacting, and whether we're taking hormone replacement or not, how does all that work? Because that's sort of like a yeek, how do, you know, for me, around brain health, low estrogen, and then now we've got this talking to our brain too.
So, okay, so many good things to talk about here. On the level of how these drugs work on the brain, they give a calmness often where there has been a lot of chaos when it comes to food choices. So that is regardless of what era of your life you are in, pre, peri, post-menopausal. I find that kind of transcends all phases of life, and both men and women. What's fascinating is that food triggers, and especially where the brain becomes damaged with ultra processed foods and weight over time. We talk about this in the book, and this is very true. And we start to create bad reward loops in our brain. So kind of that concept of like when you know, it's always a joke about a bag of chips, like you can't just stop at one. It's because it sets up dopamine release in the brain that wants us to get more and more and more. And over time, that pathway can become very, very damaged. It's the same damage that we see in alcoholism, drug addiction, addictions, shopping addiction. So you'll hear from people on these medications that, and it's actually being studied for alcohol cessation, drug addiction cessation. You'll hear people say
they're all related, really, in many ways.
Exactly. You'll hear people say, I don't shop as much. I don't find that need, the compulsion to go buy things. So that's very profound. And we know through brain imaging that we even see that there is a diminished reward when you put food pictures in front of people on these drugs, and they just don't have the same negative feedback loop, or rather a positive, but it's a negative in the end.
Right. We're just chasing the dopamine all the time, right?
Yes. And, you know, I talk about that in the book. We need to find a replacement because it actually can be a little bit sad for people when they're like, but now I don't get my release for alcohol, and I don't get it through food, and I miss that. And so we have to work on finding other healthier replacements.
Right. Exercise is good, not social media. Let's not do that.
Exactly.
Because I know that's a quick one, right? Okay. So Madge is in, one of our favorites, your favorite, my favorite, says, I have the most mental clarity and freedom. I can focus on things that really need my attention, not what I'm going to eat next. And it's going to send the scale the scale soaring in the wrong directions. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I have to say, this great timing, because over the weekend I met with a friend who has just finished 3 months on Ozempic and has lost 20 pounds. She feels like she's regained her confidence, and she tried doing it all the ways that, you know, we talk about, all the, you know, 100 grams of protein, 25 grams of fiber, like all the good things. And it's just changed her world. She's in the food industry also, and the food is everywhere all the time. Mm-hmm. And so she can now have a couple of bites, a sip of wine, and be good with it, and just move on. And it's really been transformational for her. So.
I know. And I'm seeing here in the comments too, Carrie said the same thing. Her brain was hijacked. And I hear that a lot, hijacked. It was hijacked by food, and you just get a clarity, and now it's quiet, and that's amazing. But I will say, to kind of go back to the original point about the phase of life that we're in, I often think that my peri and post and menopausal patients get a lot more clarity in their management of the peri and menopausal symptoms once we have this drug on board. Because often I feel like a lot of times doctors will say, well, just lose weight, go to the gym. And they're like, no, this has helped me. I don't have that problem anymore. Mm-hmm. But you know what I do have? I still have brain fogginess, and I do still have night sweats. And I can attribute this to the 25 pound weight gain, because I've now taken that off. I'm doing all of the things that you already set out to do, you know, and we still need to get the protein in, and we still need to get the fiber in, we still need to do the healthy things.
We need to do that for our health,
exactly.
Period. Yeah,
exactly. But it almost gives a treatment pathway plan that's a lot more clear. And so many of my patients right away will be like, well, hey, you've been stable on this med for a long time. We know now that whatever's happening here, this is actually a peri symptom. This is a menopause symptom. Let's talk about it. It seems like it's time to start HRT. And I find a great synergy in the treatment management. I will also say what I have started to find, and this has not yet been reported in the literature as far as I can tell, is that often during this period where your body is working so hard to transition from your phase of life, right? And like you said, estrogen levels are just on the decline. We often need a little bit of extra support from this GLP-1. Like I will tell people, you know, if I have people going into like their 40s and 50s, and I'll say, we're going to stay on this dose right now. And then after, when they're done with their HRT and they're done with their symptom management and they've kind of exited and they're like, okay, I can breathe now, we actually can come down on these medications too. Their bodies just need different things, and there is actually more of just a clarity overall. And, you know, our goal is always to just maintain and manage health, and it's not to necessarily come off, but we're finding that their bodies need different things. And so it's like you have to keep staying in tune, and the GLP-1s will help quiet often what is very chaotic, right? We know that like sleep and weight and the belly fat comes, and this is just helping to normalize one, to like solve it and move it out of the way so we can address the other things.
Yeah, really good. I hope you have some extra time today, because we can do.
Yeah, so got all those questions coming in. Let's talk about it.
So many things here. So Karen said, let's get to the side effects. Yeah. And then I want to talk, don't let me forget about visceral fat, because that you know, loss of visceral fat versus muscle loss. I want to get to that, but I'm just going to put a pin in it because I don't want to forget. Okay, so Karen says, I wish the side effects weren't so severe for her. All right, so we know, will you talk about the side effects? I've heard about all of them. Yeah. And some people really
Karen,
struggle.
If you drop in what you're specifically experiencing, I will tell you exactly my protocol. So
lucky,
because I've been writing for these medications for so long, I have developed a very efficacious protocol in my practice, and my patients continue on these meds. 66% of users by a year are actually stopping due to side effects. That's incredibly high, right? We just spent the first 20 minutes of this chat talking about how amazing they are. Well, they're not so amazing if you're feeling like crud.
Right.
So the biggest side effects,
to be nauseous, right?
No, exactly. Okay, so constipation and upper stomach and lethargy. So let's tackle lethargy. So lethargy and fatigue. We do not need that. These medications are supposed to be additive to your life.
That's you.
Yeah. Sorry, I jumped up. Okay, so lethargy, we want it to be additive. We don't want you having to stay in bed. When you first off, all of these medications, regardless of which one you're on, they start at a low titration. And there can be a set protocol for going up month over month, or, which I think is better, is to listen to you and your symptoms and your needs and go up very slowly. I really don't follow, for most of my patients, a traditional standard protocol. We just start and then we see how people respond. And if you're having terrible side effects that last you through the first month, that's a big sign to me that you're not ready to go up to the next dose. So, you know, if you go up, and I just had this with a patient who's been on the drugs for 5 years at this point. He just had a really bad few months. We have to go back down to the beginning. His stomach was bothering him. We need to reset. So it's always okay to go back down to the lesser doses and see what your body needs. The fatigue. So this is due to two things. One, it's dehydration. Your body has such decreased hunger that it actually translates into decreased thirst. And when you're not eating as much, and you're definitely not drinking as much, and what little water your body does take in or you're drinking, you might not have enough solute to rehydrate the parts of your body. This is why I'm adamant that my patients start their day with an electrolyte, a little bit of salt and the right minerals to get the water into the intravascular spaces that matter.
Yeah.
So try that. The other thing that's happening with fatigue is that what we call a relative hypoglycemia happens when you start these drugs. So it's a lower blood sugar. It's not too low, but it's lower than what your body has been running on for a long time.
Yeah.
And I find that this is more predominant. It might not be in your case, but I do find it's more predominant in people who are starting with pretty high blood sugars and their body like had to figure out how to run there. It's not the normal place, but they had to figure it out. So when you start effectively lowering it, there's like a big shock to the system. So regular meals, even if your body is telling you that like I'm not hungry, I really want you to focus on getting in a protein shake first. Like second thing, start with the electrolytes. This is what I recommend to my patients. Start with electrolytes and then move on to a protein shake, even if you're not hungry. It's generally something people can get in, and that will hopefully regulate you more throughout the day. And we need to make sure that we're getting in enough food and really on our protein front. And then this constipation. Okay, we can talk about this. Like I know this is part of your mission too.
Yeah, we're all about the fiber around on both of our camps, right? High fiber, high fiber.
Fiber. But here's the tricky thing is that people who are on these drugs don't have a lot of volume in their stomach at the beginning because the GI tract slows. And so they're not that hungry. And if they bulk up on leafy green vegetables, things that are more traditionally high in fiber, they're not going to feel so well, right? They're going to have that upper stomach pain. Okay, so like, well, what do I do? So at the beginning, I think it's actually very important to focus on fiber that can come through processed means. So like psyllium husks or additive fibers, that it really does make a difference. And turning to cooked vegetables. So I do have a new baby. I just had my fourth baby, and I'm kind of a pro at making baby food at this point. And, you know, I would love to not have to steam all the vegetables, but she can't, for many reasons, she can't take, you know, hard veggies or leafy greens yet. And you can still get the benefit of vegetables in a much easier way on the digestive system and the gut if we steam it and cook it down. And it really does
down, give the gut a little head start with breaking it down.
Yeah. So it's just kind of being on top of it and making sure that our dose isn't too strong. Also,
so what do you start at? Because I understand some of the different brands, you get the pen and it's set, the minimum is set, where others you can. Is that true or not true?
Yes. So each of the drugs has a starting dose, and generally that's well tolerated by people. And we start low. Some people feel it, some people don't. It's all normal. But if you're feeling the side effects of the low dose by the end of the month, well, then it's not time for you to go up to the next dose, right? If you're feeling it and you're losing weight, then it's effective, and then I'll wait to go up to the next dose. So sometimes people are being a little overutilized in the medication, and really making sure that we're focusing. The other thing about when people feel nauseous on these meds, I don't know, that wasn't Karen's symptom, but when people are feeling nauseous, often they're eating foods that are higher in carbohydrates. And the body does not tolerate them that well on these medications, because we were talking about how effective the body is at grabbing up the blood sugar, and it can make people feel fatigued and tired, and it can just make them feel really bloated. So I have people go back to the basics. You know, it's not about necessarily a keto diet or very low carbohydrate, but protein first. Fill up there first and you'll feel the best.
Yeah.
So I hope some of those tips work, but then get the book, because then I write about this.
And it comes out in January, right? But you can pre-order now on Amazon.
Yes.
And the audiobook, because you gotta keep going, keep moving too.
I read it and I think it's very pleasant. So yeah, get that audiobook. And yeah, I talk about this, no pun intended, ad nauseum in the book, because it's just the thing that keeps people from feeling well and thriving and getting these amazing benefits that we talked about. So definitely worth troubleshooting. And one point, someone said they feel great on tirzepatide. The newer wave medications are a little easier on the GI tract. So if you're really not tolerating semaglutide, like Wegovy and Ozempic, it might be worth switching over.
The switch. Okay. So how long do you have to be on it? You talked about a patient that's been on it for 5 years. And so that just made me go, no. So, and let's put it in this container.
Yes.
So perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal woman who has gained the traditional 10, 20 pounds, struggling, doing all the things, cannot get that to get off, and just uncomfortable and doesn't want to think about it anymore. So does it make sense for that woman, 10 pounds to shed? And then at what point does it make sense? Yeah. And then how long do you have to stay on it if it's a 20 to 30 pound journey, let's say? So 10 pounds doesn't make sense. And then how long do you stay on it for 20 to 30 pounds?
First. On the label by the FDA, there are very clear indications. And that is a BMI greater than 30 or a BMI greater than 27 with something called comorbidity, an issue related to your weight. If we really dig into the science of weight management, metabolic health, a much more accurate number to look at is body fat percentage. Right? We're talking
not a fan of BMI,
Yeah.
It doesn't count for muscle, bone, like all those things,
no,
right?
But
so
it's a quick
body fat percentage.
It's a quick and easy screening test in the doctor's office. But the more accurate way to look at whether a medication is appropriate for you is through body composition. And I'd actually say we need to dig into ethnicity. So this is not very well known, and I write about this in the book, but different ethnicities carry different metabolic kind of derangements at smaller levels than the traditional Caucasian patient. So the BMI is written for the Caucasian male and female. And in Southeast Asian populations, Mexican, different subsets, we find that actually lower BMIs, lower waist circumferences are actually the goal. And we don't talk about that a lot in medicine, which I think is just terrible that we don't get more into the nuances of what an individual needs. Body fat composition can also tell us a lot. So 10 pounds, I don't have enough information to say whether that patient can really benefit from it. Yeah. It is a risk-benefit ratio, and we need to make sure that we understand why we're doing something and why we're getting to a place of doing it.
I love that you said that body fat percentage is better, because it's just better in general. So what is that? What is that threshold of like, this is for you, sister?
So for women, we'd ideally like a body fat percentage less than 25, and for men about less than 20. Obesity for women is a body fat above 30. And you would just be very shocked at, we're just very bad guessers of where we lie and what the average person is. And even now people say, that person doesn't need to lose weight. And even by a BMI, they totally fit the bill. And so I really just think that this is something that needs to be a discussion that's nuanced with your provider. I would say that we want to be careful of this being a vanity drug. So just because you have a little extra weight and you're not fitting into your last size pair of pants, does that make sense to start? I keep giving this thumbs up.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
It was a good timing for a thumbs up. So just go with it.
But at the same time, I do listen to my patients who say, but gosh, I've put on this weight. This is not like me. It's all in my belly. This is not about vanity. I am not feeling well. And I'm seeing we check labs, metabolic health labs, and we see something like insulin resistance developing. Well, then we need to address that. This all rolls into the question of how long do you have to be on this medication? This medication is approved and indicated for long-term, potentially forever use. So that's where we have to make a decision here. And some people are like, but not me. I'll be the person who comes off of it. Well, when you look at all of the evidence, which we have laid out in the book, the vast majority of people will regain all of their weight once they stop this drug. And even for people whose lifestyle has been dramatically changed. That's not to say you can't come off of it, but I have the discussion with every single patient that I start on this drug that this is something you may need and may likely need forever.
Yeah,
and anyone out there trying to tell
that.
you,
yeah, most women, especially who are on that 10 to 20 pounds, and I'm going to go back to pounds because that's what we're talking about versus body fat, which is a better metric. But is that like, oh no, I'm just going to do it temporarily and then I'm going to microdose?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, this whole microdosing. Let's talk. Can we talk about this?
Can we? I'm glad you said that. Go ahead. Okay. Take it away.
I think this is a wild concept that has come out of someone saying, I figured out how to do it better. Well, let me tell you, all of the studies have looked at microdosing, like all of them, but they really don't work for the vast majority of people. And so we have set doses that are released with these medications. If you're going to take a medication, I want it to be efficacious for you. And I think the majority of people that I've seen come to me asking for microdosing, and I will keep people at low doses. There are occasionally people we have to even go smaller than the traditional standard. But the majority of people who come to me asking for microdosing, it is actually more of a problem weighted in stigma and bias against themselves and the process of using a medication than anything else. And I think it's really important to state. So people will be like, well, if I go on a small dose,
right, just a little bit.
Because I don't really need this. I don't really have a problem.
I'm not like
really
okay. Them, like, right. That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, the stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. And you had started that at the beginning, and I'm thinking that's exactly what I was thinking about. And it just doesn't help us. Now, again, everyone needs to be an individual and unique, but I don't think that there's benefit in trying to pretend that we're smarter than what has been set out in evidence and in science. And if we're going to rely on a medication, we should treat it with the respect that it went through in all the clinical trials and how it's intended to be used the majority of the time. So I think I really haven't been liking what I've been seeing. I've gone on record. Again, we've been given a great gift with these medications, and we need to treat it, I think, with profound respect and be honest in how it should be used and not use it in the wrong ways and use it kind of in ways that are clinically decided and evidence-based. So
I love
I'm
that.
off my soapbox now.
No,
but
that's the best soapbox because that's the real talk, right? That's what we're here for, the real talk. Okay, so let's zoom back to visceral fat.
Yeah.
So you get your body scan and your fat percentage is not, it's still, at the top of the range. And, but your visceral fat score on your body scan is like, no. So do these drugs help? They go right to help losing the visceral fat? Because I also, then we haven't even talked about Ozempic face and a flat butt and like I lost all my muscle and all that kind of stuff, right? But
yeah,
because that's part of why we gain weight back, right? Also, when we lose our muscle mass, then our metabolic rate not as robust. So visceral fat, are we going to lose that or not?
Yes. So we actually do see higher rates of fat. So whenever you lose weight, so let's just start here. Whenever you lose weight, you lose muscle and fat. There is no way to just lose fat. When we take these drugs, and I went through all of the literature in writing this book and kind of laid out, we have a better fat to muscle loss ratio than with traditional calorie restriction, which tends to target muscle. We can help significantly that ratio by focusing on protein and strength training throughout the weight loss journey.
Right.
And these medications do tend to work more effectively on visceral fat, the dangerous fat, because that's the fat that accumulates we see it in midlife changes, we see it with insulin resistance. It's the fat that's the bothersome, loathsome fat for future disease. And we do see reduced visceral fat versus calorie restriction, and bigger than that, you know, in the title of my book is End Yo-Yo Dieting.
Right.
The biggest problem with traditional calorie and exercise reduction is that in the vast majority of cases, the weight comes back and then some, and we've harmed our metabolism in that.
And it's just cardio versus lifting weight and building our
Exactly.
muscle with protein. Let's just say everything 3 times, you know, lift, protein, fiber, fiber, right?
I mean, that's the truth, right?
That's
It's the truth. And I'm so happy that people are really starting to come to it, because that is the piece of the puzzle that is often the hardest for me and to get my patients to embrace. And even in my own life, it's really hard to carve out time for exercise. It really is. It is the thing that, like, I know I need to do it, but it feels like a task, you know? And so the more that we can tell people that it just has to be a part of the lifestyle, it has to be a part of the puzzle, and there's really no negotiating around it, it is what it is.
right.
So these medications are going to be even getting better too. There are drugs in development that are going to be targeting more fat loss and muscle preservation and be muscle sparing in the weight loss process, which will be wonderful. And we're starting to already see that those clinical trials come out. But yeah, the best thing you can do to avoid a lot of these like skin laxity is protein, collagen. That's why I put it in the protein that we make. I put collagen in. It really does have evidence. The rate of loss, people like kind of want weight loss like overnight. It takes a long time to lose 25% of your total body weight. It should take that. It should only be about 1% total body weight per week. That's not hugely fast. That will help us maintain more muscle, lose more fat, help our collagen in our body.
Manage all the loose skin and things that can come if you lose it too quickly. You're in big trouble.
But the fact of the matter is, with large weight loss does come skin laxity, but the majority, I've never had a patient go, "Oh my gosh, Dr. Soa, you gave me Ozempic face. I hate you." They're like, "Who cares? I'm healthy and I'm fit and I can climb up a mountain and I don't care, and like maybe I'll get a lower facelift." And like nobody cares. I feel like this is very overblown in the media.
Very Hollywood. Very Hollywood. Okay, let's talk about the costs, and I bet you have some tips for us after that. But how much does it cost? I've heard many things, and you know that there's the whole piece. Are we taking it away from other people who need it for other purposes, on-label purpose versus off-label purpose? And that's kind of changed now, I guess, with these other drugs. But so that's a two-part question.
I feel like obesity is a disease, and people deserve treatment for any disease management. So I've never actually really felt that about taking away from one or the other. They are the same drugs. In the United States, we have a very complicated system where the exact same drugs and the exact same dosing and exact same indications have different names, and they have different FDA labels, and insurance codes them differently. So I really wouldn't let that thought get into your head. We are now off of shortages with these drugs too, so I approve their use however they need to be used for disease management. They're very expensive. A very exciting bill just got pushed through by Biden's administration that hopefully will lead its way into Trump's administration, and it was called the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act, and a part of it got passed through, which would make these drugs covered by Medicare and Medicaid. This is huge because once that happens, you're going to see the drug prices come down significantly. And it's not just pharma. We have a very complicated system in the United States by which we have something called PBMs, and we have these like many people come in to take parts of the cost of the drug. And actually, if you can believe it, fun fact, most pharmacies are losing significant money in filling these drugs because they have to pay more than what insurance will reimburse them. So we have a lot of reform to do when it comes to our entire health and pharmacy for non-generics, our whole system, but specifically in this space, because 50% of our country is approaching obesity rates. 88% suffers from metabolic dysfunction. 1 in 8 Americans are on these drugs right now, and more will benefit from them. So we have a problem with cost. So right off the bat, call your congressperson and say, "I support this bill if this is of interest to you." It's of huge
It's
interest to me.
covered for on-label use, just
No,
not off-label for obesity or weight
no, no,
loss.
no, no. So most insurance companies will cover some form of GLP-1 for type 2 diabetes management. Not all of them, not all of the drugs, but they'll cover some. But less and less commercial insurances are covering the cost of these drugs for obesity management.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a problem. That's a huge problem because let's talk about cost. So cost is anywhere from $350 a month all the way up to about $1,200 a month. And there are coupons right now for Zepbound that bring the cost of Zepbound per month down to $650. So we're seeing some more manageable prices than we have in years past due to coupons or set prices coming down. Like Wegovy has now brought their list price down. And Eli Lilly for Zepbound is doing little vials. And so some of the starting doses are more affordable. But it's a problem, and I don't love it.
Yeah,
But
that's unfortunate for
yeah,
people who don't have financial resources,
no,
who are actually obese, not just doing it for vanity. I mean, and they can't access this.
no, and it's a really big problem. But it feels like there is a sea change happening where now the government is even recognizing that obesity is a disease. It's taken 30 years, last 12 years of hard lobbying to say, hey, this is something that deserves treatment like anything else.
Costs money to take care of sick people.
Exactly.
So let's focus on wellness, people. I like that. Yes,
Exactly. But
wellness.
talk to your HR to get coverage if you can, and advocate and call your local Congress people. It really is it truly is actually making a difference. And we want to see the cost of all of these drugs come down. And if you don't have coverage, if you're one of the lucky few to have coverage, thank your HR, because I am seeing a lot of plans change and just say like, this has been life-changing. Give, I'm not asking anyone to give away medical personal information if they don't want to, but I just think also sharing sometimes how life-changing coverage can be is very important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us the inside, because you are investing in your health. So if this feels like a solution for you, just know what that is. And we always encourage women, especially in midlife, these are the times when we should invest in our health if it's a solution that feels good for you, because we deserve it. We worked hard and we deserve to not suffer. So
yes, it is an investment, and it is a profound and life-changing one. And again, we have to look at all of these risks and benefits. And in the book, I have a discussion of how to talk to your insurance company, of how to navigate to understand if you have coverage. A lot of doctors won't do the digging for you, so you really need to understand your options with this. So
feels like menopause. You need to be your own advocate first to figure it out, to navigate through this.
There are so many overlaps. Yes, it's really true. And you know what's really interesting? That the majority of people on these drugs are women over the age of 45. Like 80%.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's very frustrating. I mean, that's how I got into this world and created a bar, because I just didn't think hormone replacement was for me. So what can I have to manage the 10 pounds I've gained? And I'm 5'1", so that's a lot for me. And so I did it the hard way, but it's ongoing, right? But
it can be multi-layered approach what people do, right? And like what's easy to one is hard for another, and vice versa. And we kind of need all of these things. And I think the ecosystem, this is how I feel about our GLP-1 support products that we've created. It's very exciting to see a new ecosystem of products, of everything from like medical management to just even supplements to what you can eat and how you're shopping. It's really wonderful when like more and more things come and you have the options.
Well, that's what we're looking for, right? And especially midlife women, we want options, and not just the same old stuff, not your grandma stuff, not even your mom stuff. We want our own things that are modern approaches to what we need. And I know you've got some awesome products with your brand, SoWell, which I love because it's like MenoWell, SoWell. So we're going to talk about where they can find them. All right. So I know you probably have some more patients. So 20 already today. Shout out, 4 kids. I only have 3. I had to stop at 3. give us some tips, and then where we'll talk about where we can find you and pre-order the book. And I'd love to have you come back in January after the book comes out on January 7th. It's so exciting. So give us a few tips here, and then we'll talk about where to find you.
So my biggest tip, and we didn't talk about this at all, when starting these meds is to get, again, thumbs up, who knew, is to get into the habits. So I'm a big believer in holistic change, and tracking habits even before you start these medications is a big part of our MenoWell method, and the one that I teach in the book. So it's so important for any stage of your life. It's like, how are you feeling? How are you sleeping? How are you exercising? Where is your hunger? What are you eating? And once we start into that habit foundation, then we can really understand how to help ourselves through side effects or stagnant weight loss or anything we're feeling once we start the medication. The other thing I'll say is that we cannot discount our brain. We talked about it a few times, what our brain will tell us. I find, and it's I think chapter 8 in the book is all dedicated to cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and catching negative thoughts and rewiring, giving you scripts, because throughout this journey you will start to talk yourself out of success. And I know I'm really good at predicting when it will happen, because I've treated so many patients that I'm like, okay, first happens 10 pounds down, and then it happens about 3 months in, and then it happens when your labs come back normal, and then it happens maybe when you have to move, you have a life change. And it's almost like your brain will just try to get in your own way.
Interesting.
And so kind of don't discount the things that you've heard of before for weight loss. And some of them might sound old, but they're new again in the context of starting these medications. So lots of tips like that over in the book. So where can you find? So I'm over at Alexandra Soa MD, and I am founder of a company called Get So Well, and we have right behind us, we have a trio of products called the GLP-1 support system, and we just launched in August, and we're in retail, popping up all over the country and on our website, getsowell.com. And our book, the Ozempic Revolution, this is my 5th child. I'm not having any more children, and it's yet to be seen if I have more books in me. But
books, yes, kids, no. Yeah, books are cheaper.
I wrote this. I had the idea for this book when I was about 4 months pregnant, and I was like, could I take on anything more? And it was a very clear yes, because I'm in the unique position of having been a specialist for over 10 years and having refined a very unique, interesting model in my practice. And I just felt like with the explosion of these meds, people needed to see it. And so getting this book out into the world was a way to really help so many more people. And I'm very proud of it. And early reviews are coming in, and they're outstanding. So if you are at any stage of your GLP-1 journey, or you know of someone, you can think of someone who might benefit from this as a gift, please go pre-order and help us amplify the message behind this book. And you can find that over on getsowell.com, or HarperCollins is publishing the book, and you can find it on Amazon or wherever books are sold right now. So my hope is that this becomes just like a little, just like a community that can amplify, and book clubs and girlfriends are sharing it with each other, much like what's happened with the wonderful evolution in menopause conversation over the past year. I'm really hoping that this book can help us destigmatize weight care.
Yeah. I love that. That's why I really wanted to have you on, because I wanted to take the shame, the stigma out of using these drugs. We need to be in I'm sorry, the sun's coming down on here. We need to be in a no judgment zone around how we live our lives, especially in the second half. Right. And so we just need to know right from the expert, and the fact that you have been using these drugs, supporting people with obesity and weight loss for over 10 years. You're kind of an OG in this space, right? You're a young OG.
I don't feel that way most days, but yes, I mean, it's been a gift to be able to have known and learned and kind of perfected the way that I know how to help people through them, because the meds are not a magic wand. It is the whole process of how you eat and how you think and how you have the habit foundations and how you exercise, right? It still takes work. So hopefully we've been able to demystify that, and in a nice little handbook in the new weight loss Bible, I hope.
So exciting. Look forward to it. And I'm sure there's some good nuggets in there. even if you don't decide to go the GLP-1 route, just on managing weight and fat loss. So I'll be reading it no matter what. I'm looking forward to that. If you want to send me an advance copy,
Great. We'll do that. We'll do that offline. I'll get Barbara call and send you some.
Okay. Okay. Last but not least, we're MenoWell. What does menopause or MenoWell mean to you?
Oh, well, I think that as we've I've said so much, there is such an overlap between what it is I do and what it is you do. And I think living well at every stage of our life, a disease does not define us, a life change does not define us, and thriving. I think that is what it means to be MenoWell.
Awesome. I love that. So we can Meno so well together.
Yes.
How about that? Really good.
Okay.
Dr. Alexandra Soa, thank you for being here. Make sure you're following her here on IG. Your social media is pretty funny. I like it.
I'm trying over here.
I'm impressed. I need some inspiration. All right. Thank you so much for your time. We look forward to getting your book on Amazon, wherever. The Ozempic Revolution comes out in January. Pre-order it now. Thanks so much. Be well. See you soon. Take care.